I'll bring that up at the next meeting that I attend.
Karen?
So it's been brought to my attention that our zoning enforcement officer is not only doing zoning enforcement, he's also now responsible for spending 50% of his time doing soil and sediment. One of the things that this planning commission voted back in August to ensure that it went to the Board of Commissioners, that that's not something that would happen when a zoning enforcement officer was hired. I would propose that the planning commission come together again and support a letter to the Board of Commissioners to let them know that we'd like to have a full-time zoning enforcement officer and not someone who's pulled off to soil and sedimentation.
Very good point.
That is a good point. You get- What's your,
Making a motion for that?
Yes, I would like a
I would
motion.
support that.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think it should include the point that if we don't have enforcement, we might as well not have zoning.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right?
We're
Is-
finally making
Good
some
progress.
progress on enforcement. And if he's gonna be pulled off 50% of the time to do something else, whatever else it is,
Yep.
then we're defeating what we feel is the primary purpose of his job.
And this was brought to me by a concerned citizen, and I did talk to Mike last week. Apparently, he spent 30 hours of his 40 hours doing soil and sediment.
has he taken the soil and sediment training?
He's taken the first phase of the certification, which allows him to document and inspect. He does not have the full certification, which allows him to design or propose mitigation, for example. He's out there doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of repeat visits, a lot of these soil permits. It's not just one time and you're done. They typically demand repeat visits, and he's been tasked at times with performing some of that, or those repeat visits, and documenting any changes in our database. So
Who is fully qualified to do the soil and sedimentation?
right now, Mr. Cronk, our building official, and Paul Morse in the building department is as well. I have the SESC cert, which basically allows me what Mike is allowed to do now. I intend to get the full cert, but my intent in doing so was to throw my hand into the ring whenever we're shorthanded, not to make that become, you know, a large component of what I do. But you know, the program needs some administering, and you know, Mike on some days has thrown his hand into the ring and helped the building department, helped the planning and zoning department with covering these inspections. Obviously you have concern, and given the history that Ms. Johnson pointed out, and I've been here for that recent history about your collective concern about a lack of zoning enforcement over the last 3-4 years.
15, 20.
And as I think you know, Michael Peltier has done an admirable job thus far cleaning up a lot of our files. There's still a lot of work to be done, but at least we've had someone on it now, rather than just, well, it's a file at the corner of their desk. When you get a free moment, we'll look through some of these.
But that's what it's now becoming
Well,
again.
and that's a concern.
The citizen that brought this to me had filed a complaint months ago and called to follow up on it and was told, I can't get to it, I'm doing soil and sedimentation. So our zoning enforcement officer cannot do zoning enforcement because he's doing something else. That is a failure to the general public.
Mike, where does the responsibility lie on soil and sedimentation? Your side of the hall or the other side?
Yeah, technically it's administered by planning, but the building and safety department does much of the heavy lifting in terms of inspection. Matt, last summer, Matt was he was spending the majority of his time as building official doing in the field inspection. He's got to get away from that, obviously. We do have Paul Morris, as I noted. Paul has done a lot of that. But technically, your point, Mr. Freeze, it's administered and the oversight is by planning, even though building does a lot of, as I put it, the heavy lifting on this. We do the scheduling, we do some of the inspections, but it's been largely building safety by virtue, in large part, of the fact that they're the department that have really only had the fully certified staff to adequately do these inspections. So.
Okay, we have motion and support to have a letter composed and sent to the County Board of Commissioners stating our concerns about our lack of enforcement again. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.